Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFO DFS report. It is Wednesday, December 8th. I hope everyone is having a fine Wednesday. We have a 4-game slate on our hands. Before we get into that, though, I would like to apologize for yesterday not being able to go live. It's always going to be difficult on the Tuesday and Thursday slates. There's just so many games. It's a lot of upkeep on the website and then trying to go live as well. It's a bit of a handful, so I do try as hard as I can every day to go live and keep an eye on my Twitter account for when these videos will be happening. But all right, 4-game slate. Let's start with the goaltenders. We've got Adam Huska, not 100% sure how to pronounce the name. I do apologize in advance to him and his family, but he's going to be making his NHL debut in the Rangers crease. Darcy Kemper is back in net for the Colorado Avalanche. The New Jersey Devils, unclear who starts for them at this moment, but we are looking for Mackenzie Blackwood. Carter Hart goes for the Philadelphia Flyers. The Vancouver Canucks did not confirm a goalie this morning, although we anticipate it will be Thatcher Demko, and Jeremy Swayman confirmed to start for the Boston Bruins. And then in the nightcap final game of the evening, we've got Robin Lehner expected to start, although unconfirmed. Braden Holtby will start for the Dallas Stars. So now let's take a look at tonight's implied totals. Colorado, unsurprisingly, given the goaltending matchup and the quality of their offense, grade out with the highest implied total on the entire slate, 3.49 goals for. New Jersey second, Vegas, Boston round out the favorites, followed by Philadelphia, the Rangers, and the Canucks and the Stars. Just keep in mind as we go along here that the implied totals come from the sports books and the lines that they've laid out and where the betting lines have gone throughout the day, and aren't a direct correlation to what I'm doing here. It's a little bit different. So it's going to be a different show today, specifically for the fact that Dallas grades out with the lowest implied total in the sports books tonight. Obviously, they are expecting a little bit of a lower scoring game there as a whole. But Dallas grades out with the highest scores, 5v5 scores on the slate. So a bit of a contradiction there between what the 5v5 numbers tell us, who's going to have the biggest advantage in DFS and what we are expecting to see from the sports books. So yeah, Dallas 1 and Dallas 2 both look really, really good. I mentioned Dallas 2 as looking like one of the better value line stacks on Monday's slate that ended up coming to fruition, being really, really good. I said they're definitely a line that you could stack with Colorado 1 and still build a pretty decent lineup. And that was among the best lineups that you could have put together that night. I know I did it. I came very, very close to having a absolutely monstrous night. Missing a couple deep punts or the right goalie in those lineups away from really having a big night. But they look like they're in a pretty good spot again tonight. Colorado 1, Vancouver 1, and Boston 1 are the next three. Vancouver 1 specifically is a little bit surprising that their numbers have been outstanding. We'll get to those in a little bit. New York 2 seems to really be finding their stride, a little bit bizarre. It seems to be correlated with Dryden Hunt being moved up to that line. They've looked a little bit better as of late. Philadelphia 1 looks okay. We'll get into Philadelphia's struggles here in a little bit. And then New Jersey 1, not that surprising to see them that high up. But let's get into the first game here, which is the Rangers and the Colorado Avalanche. So yeah, in this game, it actually looks like the Avs have one of the tougher matchups on the entire slate, going up against a Mika Zibanejad line that's been extremely good, extremely effective defensively since Capo Kakko was moved up to that line. The Kreider, Zibanejad, Kakko trio is really played very well for the Rangers. A lot of times during these shows early in the year, I was very down on the Rangers not being a very good 5v5 club. And those numbers are starting to turn for the better. And I think the Rangers are one of the more intriguing stories in the entire NHL right now when you consider the fact they're on a 7-game winning streak. They've won 8 in a row on home ice. They have the highest points percentage in the NHL, and nobody really seems to be talking about how well they've been playing as of late. Can't bring myself to play Dallas, but they seem to be decent value. Yeah, for sure. That second line is not the prettiest, and I wouldn't recommend playing Dallas 2 if you're only building one lineup. But if you're somebody who's building a lot of lineups, I think that they're a nice value option to stack with, your Colorado 1s, your Boston 1s, who are going to be extremely popular. And I don't think a lot of people will be considering Dallas 2. In terms of the matchups in this game, though, that Zibanejad line expected to go head to head with Colorado 1 the majority of the night, about 50% of their ice time respectively against each other. The Panarin line will see a mix of the Charlie Coyle and the the Kadri line and the Alex Newhook line, and then the bottom sixes will kind of duke it out a little bit as well. So as I mentioned, that Panarin line really hasn't done they've been better. They haven't really done a ton offensively, but defensively they've been extremely stout, really not giving up a lot. And they're going to need to do that against this Avalanche team, specifically with a rookie goaltender between the pipes. The Panarin line's been much better as of late too. They're not generating a ton in terms of scoring chances, but they're generating a ton in terms of high quality looks. Obviously, that is something that can happen when you've got Artemi Panarin on the ice, one of the most prolific passers in the league. So, they seem to be generating a lot of high danger looks, which is really good news, especially going up against this Nazem Kadri line, which is giving up 14 high danger scoring chances, 4 per 60. The Alex Newhook line right around league average, or slate average, I should say, in terms of defense. So that's a nice matchup for that Panarin line tonight, specifically going up against that Kadri line. Obviously, a lot of the money tonight is going to be on Colorado's side with the rookie goaltender going for the Rangers. But the Avalanche, I don't know if you've been watching them recently. It seems to be 6-5 games every single night. They score a ton of goals and they give up just as many, it seems, even against somewhat inferior opponents. I mean, the Flyers really couldn't get anything going for a couple weeks, and then they play against the Avalanche, and their offense seems to be unlocked, which is a little bit contradictory from what we saw from the Avalanche last year, really the best defensive team in the entire league. So a little bit of that is them struggling defensively. A little bit of that is the fact that their goaltending really has been quite suspect throughout the start of the season. So obviously Colorado won really, really good. Almost 3 expected goals, 4 per 60, 36 scoring chances, 12 high danger, really good. But as I mentioned, they're going to see a lot of ice time up against this advantage line, which has been lights out. I don't expect Huska to stand on his head tonight. So I think obviously you're going to want to play Colorado 1. They're in a good spot when you look at it that way. But in terms of the overall matchup, Colorado 1 could disappoint to a certain degree tonight, just given their price point, given how difficult the 5v5 matchup is. And if the Rangers can get any timely saves, I think that they could certainly steal this one. And I think that obviously Colorado 1 could disappoint. But overall, they look outstanding. Colorado 2 still just is still kind of just a mystery to me. Overall, their offensive numbers are not that spectacular. They're slightly below or above average on this 4-game slate, and they just seemingly can't stop scoring. So I'm going to probably continue to fade, even though tonight I think is a decent night for them to have a pretty decent night, just because of the goaltending, as I mentioned about 17 times on the show already. They're going to see about 50% of their ice time is going to come against New York 2 and New York 4. Went the wrong way there. New York 2, pretty good defensively. New York 4, pretty good defensively as well. So again, not a great matchup for a line that really isn't generating a ton. But sorry to interrupt enjoying the show. I thought people would be in here chatting, but apparently not. They do, obviously. Normally there is a lot of chatter going on here today. Apparently not so much. Is TOI off the D chart? Is it? No, it's right there. It's there. We still got it. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for that game. Obviously, Colorado 1 is going to be massively popular, but I mean, they do have the worst matchup on the entire slate. It's just a matter of goaltending in this one and what can get done. In terms of the power play for this game, the third and fourth biggest advantages on the slate. Both teams' penalty kills grade out below average in the NHL. The Rangers specifically are quite good on the power play. The Avalanche right around league average, but again, without Nathan McKinnon, I expect those numbers to come back up eventually. It's just, they're lagging behind a little bit, but overall, third and fourth best power play advantages on the entire slate. The time on ice seems to be incorrect. Oh, I think I have 5v5 time on ice in there today. So that's my bad. I'll try to edit that as soon as this video ends. But I mean, this is still what you'd expect from 5v5. But yeah, you are right, David. That's my apologies. I only have 5v5 instead of all situations in there today. I'll fix that as soon as this show wraps up, which means I should probably pick up the pace. All right, the second game is the Devils and the Flyers. Overall, the Flyers look to be in a pretty good spot tonight. It's just a matter of if their offense can seem to can continue what they found against the Avalanche the other night. The Devils overall have not been very good defensively. I went back and looked at the team stats for both, basically every team in the NHL and over the last month. And this is the second and third worst defensive hockey clubs in the NHL over the last month at 5v5. So this game certainly looks like one that could also be high scoring. I think the Rangers and Colorado could definitely be the highest scoring game of the slate, but this one's probably right up there with it. I think the Rangers and Avalanche have an over-under of 6.5. This game's at 6. So definitely a game that Vegas is expecting to be pretty high scoring. It's kind of a difficult game to break down. The Devils don't do a whole lot of hard matching, so it's really not something that we can take a look at. So we're just going to have to really rely on the matchup scores here. So for the New Jersey side of things, their first line looks to have the best matchup for them. The second and third lines, which is now this is the Jack Hughes line is New Jersey 2, and the Dawson Mercer line is New Jersey 3. So the Nico Hischier line looks like the best one to target from the Devils side of things. And then when you go over to the Flyers, their line combinations are a bit all over the place, so it's kind of difficult to stack. Like I don't know. Like obviously Lindblom scored the other night, but he hasn't really played all that well this season, so it's hard to really attach him to Philadelphia 1. And then Claude Giroud had 2 goals in the power play the other night as well. So if their power play, which has obviously been terrible, they have the worst power play advantage on the slate just because of how bad their power play has been. But then the Devils also have a great penalty kill. So it's going to be difficult for them to get anything going and try to continue that success on the power play tonight. But they need to figure that out because they are struggling to find offense at 5v5. In terms of overall in this game, like I said, the Devils aren't very good at 5v5. All 4 lines grade out below average. But the same thing can be said about the Flyers offensively. So, the Flyers just really aren't a fun hockey club right now. They are pretty good defensively. They don't generate a ton offensively. But the fact that these two clubs have struggled defensively so much lately, I think could open the door for any one of these lines to really succeed. Obviously, if we're just looking at historical data, the way that this Flyers line is lineup is constructed, they have been good defensively in the past, so they could certainly find that tonight and maybe improve a little bit. But given what we've seen over the last month, I'm not going to hold my breath there. That's for sure. This top line for the Devils is really, really good. You've got Hischier, you've got Bratt, who's the hottest player on their team. You've got Pavel Zacha, who's got one of the best shots in the league, and they've been really, really good. 2.8 expected goals, 4/60, almost 31 scoring chances, 14 high danger. They've been solid. So, they are going to see quite a bit of this top line of the Flyers, which is the only line that's really, doesn't grade out very well defensively. So I think it's a very nice matchup for New Jersey 1 tonight. I like them quite a bit. The third line for the Devils also looks pretty good. Dawson Mercer's basically just been driving the play with regardless of who his wingers have been. Now that it's Tatar and Jimmy Vesey, I'm not quite as high in them as I was when it was Bratt and Andreas Johnson. But I think the biggest concern for them is ice time. Now that Hischier and Hughes are healthy, there's just not a whole lot left for Dawson Mercer, right? He was playing a ton of ice time on that top I guess it was their second line, but they were basically playing as their top line every night, and the ice time was there. Now it's not so much. So to me, I think the way I want to kind of target this game is just both teams' top lines are really the ones I'm keying in on, and I like to include Claude Giroux with a Philadelphia 1 stack as opposed to Oscar Lindblom. I just think that he's going to take some shifts there. He's going to fully correlate with them on the power play. You can put them with Keith Yandel, who's only 2,700. So there's some value to be had on the Flyers. I don't love what they've done recently. Obviously, it's been just absolutely disastrous. But given how cheap they are, I think there's quite a bit to like there. I mean, you've got Travis Konechny at 3,700. You got Morgan Frost at 2,800. Claude Giroux at 4,500. So there's a lot of value that seems to be there. Brock, do you know if Max Pacioretty will play? It seems he did not skate in the morning skate. So Pacioretty was held out of practice yesterday, but all signs are pointing towards him playing. I don't think that he's going to sit out tonight. There hasn't been any indications that he will. He was basically just took yesterday's practice off, and I fully expect him to be there. It is something worth monitoring tonight, but I expect Pacioretty to be in the lineup. Seems like people love New Jersey 1 today, at least from what I'm seeing. And yeah, I mean, how could you not, right? The matchup is pretty solid. As I've mentioned, they grade out in the 58th percentile, so it's an above average matchup on tonight's slate. And the Flyers have been terrible defensively. They've been an absolute nightmare. So yeah, it's hard not to fall in love with New Jersey 1 tonight. I think that they're definitely going to be popular, and they're not crazy priced either. As I mentioned, 14,300 to full stack them is extremely reasonable. And yeah, it's hard not to fall in love with them. More of a process question: do you have a favorite target, a build that you use for your lines? When I'm playing in GPPs, a lot of times it's basically I'm trying to full stack 2 lines together. If you can, obviously, sometimes like if you want to play Colorado 1 and Boston 1 together, it's not going to work. They're just too expensive. So I like to full stack both lines if I can, and then try to correlate one of my defensemen and whether it's on the power play or a defenseman that plays with them a ton at 5v5. And a lot of that data you can find at Natural Stat Trick. I find that to be the easiest resource to find out which defensemen correlate the best at 5v5. And then obviously just my favorite, deep punt and goalie is usually the way you try to build lineups. Obviously, it's not always the way it works, but Devils whooped Philly last time out too. Yes, that's 100% correct. And everyone's whooping Philly's ass right now. I mean, they've lost 9 in a row. So yeah, it's hard not to fall in love with the Devils tonight. But I do think that the Devils, if you look at the numbers, have struggled just as much defensively at 5v5 as the Flyers. So I think that, the Flyers, even though they lost the other night, they may have found a little bit of some mojo and maybe can continue that into tonight. And I think that this is really going to be a high scoring game. So I like both sides. But New Jersey won definitely the top play in this game. The third game of the night, we've got the Canucks and the Bruins. We've got Bo Horvat's going to see about 40% of his ice time against Patrice Bergeron. They're also going to see a lot of the Bruins' fourth line. Again, not a game where there's a whole lot of hard matching. A little bit. You've got Elias Pettersson against Bruins 3. The JT Miller line is going to see a good chunk of the top 6 of the Bruins, but overall, a little bit of a difficult matchup to break down from a real matchup perspective. Overall, though, when we take a look at the matchup score, that's why it's there, quick and easy for us, does all the work. Just brutal matchups across the board for the Canucks, which isn't surprising. The Bruins are arguably the best defensive team in the entire NHL, and the numbers suggest that. Overall, the Canucks have been a little bit better defensively, so the Bruins all grade out with below average matchups, at least their top 9, but still not the worst matchups on the slate. If you take a look here at the Bruins, their top 6 has been absolutely electric all season. They do get Brad Marchand back tonight after serving a 3-game suspension. Both lines averaging over 30 scoring chances, 4 per 60. The Corsi 4 percentages both above 60, both around 60% in terms of the expected goal for percentage. So ridiculously good. Both are going to be outstanding tonight. They're going up against a Canucks top 6 that's been pretty solid defensively, though. So I think that this has a chance to be a little bit lower scoring. We saw the Canucks in their first game under Bruce Boudreau play significantly better defensively. I think that's gonna be a huge impact for them moving forward. His quote the other day was, "My defensive philosophy is, why would we ever let them in our offensive or defensive zone ever?" And if that's the kind of mentality that he wants his teams to take, they're going to be difficult to play against night in and night out. So when you factor that in, when you factor in the fact that Thatcher Demko is one of the best young emerging goaltenders in the NHL, then it might not be as easy to score against Vancouver as it was at the start of the season. But overall, it's going to be very difficult to fade Boston 1 tonight. They are an absolute juggernaut. They get Marchand back. He's going to be hungry. So I think that they're obviously going to be great. But if I had to handicap it, I would lean more towards Colorado 1 as opposed to Boston 1. Boston 1 is going to be hugely popular as well. If I had to pick between the two, I would lean towards Colorado 1 in this one, though. But Boston 1 is going to be hugely popular. They're going to be good. I think a nice pivot off of them is Boston 2. Now that Taylor Hall is allowed to drop back down the lineup with Marchand back, and they've been just simply outstanding together all season long. 35 scoring chances. Their offensive score is actually better than Boston 1. So I think that they are a really nice pivot off of Boston 1. And then you take a look at the Bergeron line, they're $22,700. You go down to Boston 2, it's $11,000 to full stack them. Charlie Coyle's played pretty well. Craig Smith, not so much, but Hall and Coyle are a nice mini if you want to include Smith and really get some big time salary relief. I think that's a nice pivot, and they're in a pretty decent spot tonight as well. So I like that. As for Vancouver, you got Vancouver 1 grading out extremely well. The problem, or the reason for that being, is that they've just been absolutely tremendous offensively. I mean, 3 expected goals, 4 per 60, 40 high danger. The problem, they're going to be tasked with shutting Boston 1 down all night long, and I think that they're going to be focused a lot more on the defensive side of things as opposed to the offensive side of things, and just making sure that Pastrnak, Marchand, and Bergeron don't destroy them. So I'm a little bit hesitant about that grade. Obviously, the offensive numbers are terrific, but it's just, they're going to be in a brutal matchup for the most of the night. And then obviously, even when they have the puck, the Bruins are so sturdy defensively that it's going to be difficult for them to generate the kind of quality that we've seen out of them before. Marchand might be rusty. He's only missed 3 games. I don't expect there to be. They don't seem to be great. or like I would be too concerned. Devils feel like bad chalk to me. I don't disagree. It's not like it's not like it's similar to last night, right? Like Anaheim 1's just been absolutely outstanding, and then they were chalky and they busted. And that's a similar type of thing could happen with the Devils tonight. So if you want to be a little bit more contrarian, then yeah, I don't think you're going to get 100% guaranteed going to get burned by New Jersey 1, but they could obviously go off, but are they going to break the slate? Probably not. So, obviously the other thing too is on a 4-game slate, you got to try to get different. So if everyone's playing Colorado, Boston, and New Jersey, then obviously there's going to be plenty of pivot spots for you. I want to be interested in the Canucks, but I just can't. It's so hard against the Bruins to score goals. It just really is. They get McAvoy back tonight. So I find it difficult to really find a spot that I want to target the Canucks tonight. Did they look, way better in their first game under Boudreau? Certainly, but I still just can't find the matchup here that I really want to target. And I think part of the issue with that being is that I think Jeremy Swayman's my favorite goaltender on the slate as well. So it's really difficult to be like, hey, yeah, I love the Canucks going up against my favorite goalie of the night. So, yeah, I just don't really know where to go with them, especially the way that this lineup is currently constructed. They also don't grade out very well on the power play. They're slightly above average on the power play. But then the Bruins penalty kill is tremendous. So, and then you look at the Bruins, they've got the top power play advantage on the slate. Their power play is very good. The Canucks penalty kill, not so much. Obviously things could change under Boudreau, but on the season, their penalty kills has been pretty brutal. So, very big advantage, at least on the power play for Boston. So even if their 5v5 advantage isn't as great as some of the other lines on the slate, on the power play, they fully correlate there, and they can definitely do the damage there. Marshark says Demko in goal and GPP. Certainly. If we take a look, I actually added a goalies tab to the page today. Basically just using our daily face-off projections. And Thatcher Demko grades out as the best value goaltender, I guess second best value goaltender other than Swayman. But Swayman's the most expensive on the slate. But in terms of points per dollar, Swayman is still the best. The second best would be Thatcher Demko tonight. He will see tied for Adam Huska for seeing the most rubber tonight. So definitely a goalie that's going to see plenty of volume. And certainly somebody who is capable of stealing the show and being a slate breaker. So yeah, Demko in a GPP is a terrific option tonight. Which D-man would you pair with that Boston 2 mini stack? It depends what your build is like. I think Grzelcyk is fine. Grzelcyk will be a fine option just because he correlates with them on the power play. So Grzelcyk would probably be my top option there. If you need to go a little bit cheaper, Brandon Carlo's okay. But in terms of power play correlation, Grzelcyk would be the one. But Boston 2 power play second power play unit isn't going to see a ton of usage behind that first one. But if you're playing the Boston 2 mini, I think Grzelcyk or McAvoy, if you can fit McAvoy, is the way to go there. Vegas and Dallas. Vegas just continues to be terrible defensively. They are starting to turn a corner now that they are getting healthy, but overall their numbers, I use their numbers with all their players in the lineup, right? Like this is Pacioretty, this is Carlson in the lineup. This is what their defensive numbers look like. And the Stars have terrific matchups across the board. For whatever reason, this Vegas team has struggled mightily defensively. I mean, just look at these numbers. They're terrible. The entire top 9, all the same. They're just giving up so many chances. The problem is, or I guess not really a problem. The good thing for them is that they're generating plenty of chances as well. So it just is a very high event, high up-tempo style of play for this entire top 9 right now. They're getting it done offensively, but they're giving up a ton and really asking Robin Lehner to do a lot of the heavy lifting. If we take a look at the worst defensive scores on the slate, they've got the second and third, and also the 5th worst defensive scores on the slate, their entire top 9. So this is a team that's really struggling defensively, and I think that even though they've got the lowest implied total, Dallas does look like they're in a pretty good spot. In this game, it's basically going to be top 6 against top 6, bottom 6 against bottom 6. The fourth line is really going head-to-head, 78%. But Dallas won, definitely the line to target. They carry the offense here for the Stars. 35 scoring chances, 4 per 60, almost 18 high danger. Tremendous numbers. And then when you factor in what the Vegas Golden Knights top 6 has done defensively, there's not a better line to target on this entire slate, in my opinion. A lot of people are going to focus in on Boston and focus in on the Avalanche, and I think that this is a primo spot to just continue to ride Dallas 1. The best part about it is that if you fade Boston 1 and you fade Colorado 1, could they kill you? For sure. But at 22,000 and 24,000 respectively, you've got Dallas at 17,400. You can pair them with another pretty decent line instead of having to punt the entire rest of your lineup. So I think that they're just in such a good spot, and people are going to overlook them tonight because I don't know if anybody really realizes just how the struggles that the Golden Knights are going through defensively. So I don't think that there's a better line to target on the slate. Just when you factor in the matchup, when you factor in how well they're playing, when you factor in price, when you factor in ownership, all of those things add up to Dallas 1 just being an incredible option tonight, in my opinion. As I mentioned, Dallas 2, they're going to see a lot of the same matchups as Dallas 1 going up against his top 6. That's been terrible. Dallas 2's numbers are very, very solid. I mean, they're not nearly as good as Dallas 1, but they come significantly cheaper. Ben, Peterson, and Radulov are coming off of a really nice performance the other night. They can definitely carry that over into tonight's game, averaging 30 scoring chances, 12 high danger. They're also a team or a line that likes to play a little bit more up tempo, giving up plenty defensively, but that doesn't really matter to us. We don't care how much they give up as long as they're putting the puck in the net. So again, I'm not totally in love with Dallas 2 by any stretch, but at 9,900, they're another line that you can very easily pair with Boston 1. You can very easily pair with Colorado 1 if those are the routes that you want to go. You can definitely fit them in without any issues at all. So Dallas 2, again, not a pretty play, but certainly a very cheap value option that could pay off, could pay dividends tonight. As for Vegas, the top line really has been mediocre at best. Pacioretty, Stone, and Stevenson, they haven't really been anywhere close to what we've been accustomed to seeing from them. In last year, they were amazing all season long. This year, it just has not quite. They haven't been the same. Whether it's Pacioretty still trying to get back into things, Stone's been banged up. Maybe they're just not 100%, but overall the numbers just aren't that great. When they're going up against Hintz and Robertson and Pavelski, they're going to have a tough time. That's a very good line defensively as well as offensively. But when they see that Jamie Benn line, that's certainly a matchup that they can win. So I think Vegas 1 is pretty interesting tonight. I do have a little bit of interest in them. Braden Holtby's just not that great anymore. So I think that this is a game that could be, sneakily high scoring as long as Dallas doesn't take an early lead, because they are very good at just parking the bus and shutting shit down. But I like this game. I like both sides of it. But I always kind of just defer to Vegas too, because the offensive numbers are always extremely similar, and they're just so much cheaper. 5,100 for Marcia, so 3,200 for William Karlsson back in the lineup. Riley Smith, 4,400. So only 12,700 to full stack. Super, super cheap. And basically you're saving $5,000 as opposed to going to Vegas 1. So in a similar matchup, almost identical in terms of the matchup, Vegas 2 is actually slightly better because they're going to see a little bit more of Dallas 3 than the Vegas top line. So a little bit better matchup, a little bit cheaper, and the offensive numbers are almost identical. So, I just think it's I always default to Vegas 2 as opposed to Vegas 1. Although with that being said, I still think Vegas 1 is very is a line that could have plenty of success. Pacioretty, obviously a guy whose shot volume is just insane and can steal a slate at any time. The other line that is a little bit intriguing here now, there's actually two of them. Vegas 3, their numbers are just through the roof. It's not a line that I'm going to be seriously considering, but if you're looking for some other really cheap value stacks, 9,100, another line that you could potentially pair with the really expensive lines. And their offensive numbers are really, really good. Yamark 2,500, Nick Waugh 3,300, and Dadonov 3,300. I mean, that's a pretty talented third line. And at that price point, 9,100, I think they're another decent value option to consider. And then the other one is New York 3. Lafreniere 2,500, Heidel 3,100, and Gauthier 2,500. They're basically minimum priced. In terms of their matchup, they're going to see a lot of the Avalanche fourth line. And the Avalanche fourth line, obviously, these defensive numbers are pretty solid overall, but they don't do anything offensively. So that's definitely a matchup that New York 3 can win. They're one of the better offensive lines in terms of actually just generating scoring chances. They don't ever seem to score. Eventually, you would imagine the floodgates will open for this line, especially when you consider that it is Alexis Lafreniere and it is Philip Heidel, and then you've got Gauthier. I mean, it's three pretty talented young players that just can't seem to find the back of the net, but they're generating a ton of chances. So again, Dallas 2, New York 3, and Vegas 3. They're certainly not lines that you should be in love with tonight. But if you're looking for lines that are actually generating chances to pair with Boston 1 or Colorado 1 that aren't going to be high owned, and you can still build reasonably decent lineups, like you can play pretty good defensemen or pretty good goalies with those top lines. These are 3 lines that you should at least consider doing that with, because they are generating, you got 31 scoring chances, 17 high danger for New York 3. Vegas 3 is 32 high danger, 32 scoring chances, 16 high danger, and then Dallas 2, 30 and 12 with a really good matchup. So all 3 lines generating over 30 scoring chances, 4 per 60. You love to see that. Again, defenseman, sorry, I did mess up this chart today. Obviously, it changes when you factor in the other 7 minutes a night. But in terms of 5v5 play, Dougie Hamilton seems to be there, but I'll go fix this. If you don't have access to this chart, it means you're not a DFO premium member. Please go subscribe to that for as little as $19.99 a month. And then this will be updated in about 6 minutes as soon as I finish today's show. And then in the power play in the last game there, I forgot to talk about that. Dallas is the second best. I got Dallas 2 on the brain. Dallas has the second best power play advantage on the slate. The Vegas penalty kill has struggled a little bit. Dallas's power play has been really, really solid. Vegas, their power play is solid as well, but the Dallas penalty kill is very good. Overall, the 5th best advantage on the slate for the Golden Knights. And then in terms of goalies, again, I'll just go back to this. This is new. It's strictly my DFO projections, pulled, copied, and pasted into the sheet. But it factors in the win percentage, which comes via the Vegas lines, and then our projected shots against, and then the goals against is strictly the Vegas implied totals. And then obviously just subtract the amount of goals from the shots against, and you've got how many saves they're going to make. And then boom, you got a projection. So Jeremy Swayman, top goaltender on the slate. Mackenzie Blackwood, again, I think it's pretty interesting just given how much the Flyers have struggled, but he does worry me a little bit at 8,000. I think I would rather just pay up for Swayman. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to take on that added risk of basically we're talking about the best team defensively over the last month in the Bruins, or the 3rd worst defensive team in the league over the last month in the Devils. So it just seems like just too much added risk for $200 in savings. To me, I'd rather just go down to Darcy Kemper. Although he struggled, I think I think he's just a little bit of a better play than Mackenzie Blackwood. I could beat those words tomorrow for sure. Lehner and Hopi are interesting. I just think that game's going to be a little bit higher scoring than people or Vegas is expecting. I bet the over, so I'm hoping that comes through. So not totally in love with them. So basically for me tonight, it's Swayman or it's Demko. If I'm, obviously it's a bit messy there because they're playing each other, but they're really my only 2 options that I'm super in love with tonight. I do like Kemper. I can get behind Lehner or Holtby if I'm fading one of those 2 teams, but overall, to me, it's kind of just Swayman or bust. And then if you're not playing Boston, Demko and GPPs is a terrific option. So I just can't play Blackwood. I don't think there's just too much risk. Head-to-head Dallas Stars and Edge is nice. Wild Bill at 3,200 on DK is an absolute steal. Yeah, it's crazy. It's incredible there. Dadonov one off. He's on PP1. Yep, I like that too. Georgiev has Georgiev starting for the Rangers. I'm pretty sure that DraftKings just scrapes daily faceoff. If I ever put a defenseman as a winger, he's a winger like the next slate. So they'll probably get that right eventually. Thoughts on Blackwood? He's just too expensive. I like Swayman more. And anyone but Hart. Yeah. I guess Hart's a little interesting because he's going to see no ownership, but that really doesn't matter with goalies. So they're just struggling too much defensively. So I guess if New Jersey's chalky, as chalky as we're expecting, I guess Hart, it's a decent contrarian play at 7,400. I'd rather play him than Huska at 7,300 if that's any consolation. But yeah, to me, it's probably just Jeremy Swayman tonight. And here you go, the big board. That's what we got. Hat-trick pick for tonight. My top pick is going to be Nathan McKinnon. That's a tough one. He's got to get one eventually. So McKinnon for my big dog to score a hattie tonight. And my value pick hat trick is going to be I don't know. I don't really like anybody. Value pick. Let's go Radulov, hey? Wouldn't that be something? Alex Radulov as my value hattie for the night. 2 cash picks or must plays. Let's say 1 center and 1 winger. Oh, well, I mean, McKinnon and Pastrnak. Is that too easy? In terms of value guys there, I think Giroud is fairly interesting at 4,500. That just seems too cheap for a guy that's going to play as much as he's going to. So I do like Giroud. I think the salary relief you get by playing William Karlsson at 3,200 is nice as well. So I like them as kind of just value cash centers, guys that should be pretty decent, and they're going to play a bunch. And then wingers, in terms of guys that are not the top dogs like Pastrnak, I think Jason Robertson is a guy that fits that bill there at 5,700. And yeah, Marchessault 5,100 is fine too. They're just that Vegas whole second line for Vegas is just far too cheap. Yeah, Jesper Bratt's another guy. I just love Jesper Bratt. He's my guy. 4,800. I can get behind that. Pavel Zacha even 4,300. There's lots. There's a lot of value on this slate. There really is, which is crazy to say. But all right, that's gonna do it. See you guys hopefully back here tomorrow. If not, see you guys Friday. But I will try to do a show, like I said. Hopefully you guys return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you have today. See you guys back here then. Until then, cheers. How do we shut this off?